Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. You're listening to In the Company of Charity podcast. This is Sister Liz, and I'm here as always with Sister Elizabeth. Hello, dear sister.
Hello, sister. How are you?
I'm doing great. Before we start, the those sisters who have a podcast, those Dominicans, aren't they great? Haven't
They
you?
are they are great.
The one says to the other one, "Do you have a hobby?" And she goes, "No, I don't have a hobby. It's too much extra work."
Do you have a hobby?
I have so many, it's ridiculous.
So many hobbies.
I just got off of 2 full weeks of back-to-back service trips, and so I just wanted to share because this episode is with Bob, who is from WorkCamp, and so anyway, the first one was with Vincentian Marian Youth of Southeast Missouri. We were in Springfield and sleeping on the floor of a Catholic high school, and it was just a great experience. But perhaps it reminds you of a thing that you used to do when we were in college. When I was in
I
college, you were
yeah,
a
I just
vocation
want to
director.
say, work camps are not like a new thing. Work camps have been around for a long time. And I know that because when I was just a young vocation director many years ago, and you were really, really young college student,
Hmm.
you convinced me to go with you in
Thanks for
the
thinking of
campus ministry at Mary Washington for youth for a work camp in Kentucky, right? Wasn't
it.
it?
Hmm. Hmm.
And I slept in a top bunk of a bunk bed, which was really interesting. I was 40 something then, I think. I mean, I'm like you're getting close to that age, my dear sister. You start
We were
realizing
not spring
anything,
chickens.
anything for vocations, anything for vocations.
It was a
It
worthy
was,
investment, I would say.
I think, I mean, there are many of the young women that you were in college with at that time, and who were discerning that are now wonderful, prayerful, holy women in communities around the country, really. So I always feel good about that. But my greatest memories are being under a house, a trailer house, with a young man named Ben, and I was asking, we were putting a skirt, like a metal skirt under the house.
Hmm.
And I was asking, what do you think that like these skirts is supposed to do? They don't keep out waters. He said, no, they keep out the snakes. I was like, snakes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And then they were like, be careful when you come out, sisters. You don't get a nail in your head or something. I was like, oh my God, what am I doing here? What am I doing here? Anything for vocations. Yeah.
It's called being uncomfortable for the
Yeah,
mission.
yeah, yeah. It was really quite a trip, quite a trip. So I can imagine back to back, two of them must have been a treat. They really are amazing. I mean, they become like a
Life-changing
commune almost.
experiences.
Like everyone's looking hippie like and playing guitars and singing, and because you don't really have much else to do.
It was a real gift, and the conversations, because they kind of limit. The first week with VMY was extremely limited as far as technology. They had these certain times they could get on the phone and text family or whatever. And then the second week with Arlington Work Camp, the kids could not come with a cell phone, and so
Wow.
cell phones were at home with parents. And imagine 1,000 kids in this whole complex of high school over here, middle school here, elementary school here, and all these children of God without any technology. And it was so delightful just to see them interacting and having fun and really, really working hard. I was able to go out with the cameraman a couple days during the week and do these interviews with the kids, and it was pouring rain 2 days
Oh
of
my
it, and
gosh.
so we're all looking like drowned rats, and just yeah, just making the best of it and serving God and praying. And it was powerful for a lot of them, and cool for me to remember my days of work camp when I realized what a life's purpose could be. different than what perhaps I imagined for myself growing up. And it's better than anything I could have imagined. And my hope and prayer for them is that they can also see a deep meaning and purpose for their lives in giving the gift of yourself to others. So,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we can joke about just how rough they can get, and but at the same time, I hear what you're saying. I think when I look back on it, I realize you do have to put your entire self. It becomes, I was thinking it becomes like liturgy. Like for liturgy, we put our whole bodies into this. We sit, we stand, we kneel. We're praying, we're eating and drinking and greeting one another. There's so much activity in the middle of a liturgy, but every part of our being is engaged, right?
mm,
And it's the same. It's this idea of working in the labor of the Lord, it's and being helpful to others, being able to do things that not just that they couldn't do for themselves, but to have the community come together, have a community of people come together to help out the neighbor. We're short on that kind of energy lately in the world. So I
it
think it's
was.
a really, yeah, it's a great thing. And of course, we're going to talk about Bob, who is just a delight in this interview. I think about how many um, students, how many young people, how many counselors and chaperones, and all the people that are engaged. It's like thousands of people.
Mm,
And this is not just a small group of people going out to, hammer some nails and paint some walls. This is high energy
hmm
work and prayer and just putting the full physical force of the Lord out in the world. It's amazing.
I want to share with you one last thing before we get to the interview. There was a time with the Arlington Work Camp, the very last day, where the residents could come, and we sang and prayed, and they had a chance to share their thoughts. And one lady said, the crew had finished the project, and so she said, when I was awake the next day, I missed them a lot. They were so delightful. She said, I miss them so much that I made a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and ate it because that's what they would eat every single day.
Oh my gosh,
All of
that's
us are sitting in the
precious.
back, like crying,
Yeah,
just crying, because she was like, I love them and miss them so much. I just made a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and thought of them.
that is precious. That is absolutely precious. Yeah.
It's so cute. But yeah, if you ever get a chance to be a part of an experience like that, please do. In one way or another, there were people there as contractors, chaperones, group leaders, people helping in the kitchen, people helping at home base, and so yeah, it's a great thing to be a part of. But we hope you enjoyed this episode. Enjoy Bob and his musings on work camp and life and ministry. And next week will be our last episode of the season.
Oh
We'll have a
no.
I
Oh
know
no.
we'll go into a little bit of a hiatus for a little bit and then come back in September. But yeah, just enjoy the episode and know that we're praying for you. We love you. We hope that God is moving in your life in a powerful way. And enjoy the episode. So let me officially welcome you, Bob, to the podcast. Thank you so much for taking part and
Thanks for
being
inviting
willing.
me.
I think we have to start by talking about how we met
Yeah,
and a little bit about
we met over donuts.
Arlington Work Camp. Tell
Yeah.
the folks at home what exactly it is and how you got connected.
So I know there's other dioceses that have similar programs
Yeah.
out there, but Arlington Diocese, which is where I live down in kind of the, what do you call it, like the northern Virginia area but it's an interestingly drawn diocese because it is purposely drawn to, I think, pull in less served communities so that when we do our work camp work, we're in our diocese. Like Winchester, Virginia is part of that diocese. Yes. I live in Springfield, Virginia, which is, gosh, what is it, like 60, 70 miles, 80 miles away. So it's an interesting setup. But work camp is for the youth of the church to help them grow in their faith through service. And so what we do is we collect, there's 1,000 or so kids that wind up every summer going out to, usually it's a school that's been shut down for the summer, and we kind of take over. We invade. We invade. And and there's probably about 300 adults that are part of it too. And it's a week-long spiritual adventure for these kids, but it's focused on service because WorkCamp, right? So it's the work part is they actually go out to the community and do service projects for residents that live in that area. So these kids come from every parish within our diocese, and for our parish, there's 30 of them. There's 30 kids, and there's about 15 or so adults that are going through formation process with them, getting them ready to go to WorkCamp, helping them build like a community. And what's cool is when we get to WorkCamp, they'll be with their parish for a lot of it. But when they go do their work, they're actually put on a crew, and that crew is going to be 5 people they've never met before. So it's kids from all over the diocese. So they're going to meet kids from different socioeconomic backgrounds, cultural backgrounds, and they're going to team up with them with an adult volunteer who's been trained as a kind of like a minister, if you will, at a, and then there's going to be a contractor that goes out with them. And I'm a contractor, but I'm kind of a unicorn in the sense that I also do all that formation with the kids. And so I don't go as an adult crew leader, but I kind of behave that way throughout the week. But it's a wonderful experience, these kids, to see them start to grow within themselves, hearts of a servant, right? Yes. And it might already be there, but man, it just reinforces it for them because they're at such a, incredibly, I call it a germinating stage of faith, right? Where they're really discerning. And that's what I pray for them the most about is discernment for these kids, right?
Yeah.
But they're really trying to figure themselves out, figure their faith out, figure so much out, right? It's hard to be a kid these days, right?
It's no joke.
Yeah. And so they come to camp for a week and they're on these crews and they go do real projects. It's not like, hey, go rake this yard. It's tear out these windows and put new ones in. Tear out this roof and put a new roof on. Tear out this deck and build a new deck, or build a wheelchair ramp for somebody. So it's real.
That's why you need the contractor.
That's you need a contractor. That's right, with the truckload of tools. And it's, I will tell you, it is, man, every year I go, I get anxiety about the project I'm doing because you're just like, we're never going to get this done. Right. But man, the Holy Spirit just kind of just rolls in on it and it always gets done. It's just amazing. So yeah. And then there's that spiritual component that you were a big part of. So I'm going to hand it over to you to talk about that spiritual component because that's a big part of it. Because not only do they work all day long, come back and get a cold shower, right? Yeah. And then they're sleeping on the floor in these classrooms. So it's there's no phones, there's no outside, contact. They're part of an intentional community for that week. So,
I think that's what I love about what you're saying. The model itself does have to work because you're taking kids out from their regular environment and you're taking the cell phone connection to media away, and you're giving them this experience of getting outside of their own situation, their own anxieties, and seeing, gosh, there's so much happening in the world that I don't know about, and you're coming into, and especially, the families that you all choose to see and help. I mean, they are often in quite dire straits, it sounds.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so to see that, oh my gosh, I can actually do something, and there are people suffering, and I can make a difference in some small way. And conversely as well, the families are giving them an experience of, like coming into a different world. And so it's a mutual gift is what I'm trying to say.
Well, that's a great point, right? Because we have to accept God's grace, right? We don't there's a yes in there, right? In fact, one of the one of the work campers we had with us this year, she just really reminded me of, Mary saying yes in terms of, like, not that she didn't want to be there, but just that it takes a lot to, leave. Just like and how hot was it, by the way, last summer?
It was pretty warm.
The hottest, 95
Yeah, it
degrees,
was
right?
pretty rough.
So it was rough, and yet this kid said yes. And not only did she say yes to going, right, which is like, you don't know you're getting into, but when she actually got there and she got into it, right?
Yeah.
And she's 95 degrees and she's trying to pull this window out of the, lady's house, and she's hot and she probably didn't sleep very well, right? But every single day was this attitude, and it just reminded me of what it must have been like, not to over cook it, but just, because Mary's yes was a yes, but then it was like every day after that was a yes too, right? She had, so she said yes every day, and she, and we talk about the kids leaning into it, right? But that's a yes, and so I really admired that, because I knew what I was getting into. You know what I mean?
You've been doing this for a little
Yeah, but for these kids, it's a, it's a nice little, I don't know, like a reward for leaping into the unknown and trusting, right? So they get a little chance to, I sometimes think about, because I'm part of that generation that, we had adapted to computers and adapted to all this technology, right? So I know what it was like to grow up drinking out of a hose, and and your mom like don't come back to get outside and play, right? You weren't allowed back in the house, right? It didn't matter, if you get thirsty, you drink from the hose. Right? a feral existed as a child, but somehow they always knew where you were, which is interesting too, right? The mom radar, but I think that there's so much what appears to be connectedness for people today is not connectedness. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's a poor substitute for it. And it feels like you're connected, but I think it's not. I think you're just, but on the other hand, I will say, like, Facebook is a great way to keep in touch. Like, I love being able to keep in touch with my relatives that I don't get to see all the time, right? I can see their kids growing up, and also just friends of mine. Like, I have friends, like, I feel like I am invested in these kids I've never met, right? Because I've seen everything that they've been doing their whole life. So when you finally meet them, you're like this creepy stalker, right? But you're not. You love the person, and you want the best for them. You pray for their kids, and so when you finally get to meet them, you're like all excited, but the reality is they have no idea who you are. Like, oh, I remember when you were like, and I'm like, I don't know who this person is. But there's an investment there in prayer, right? So you're like, you feel invested in that person. But I think a lot of what can be what kids are connecting with is not making them feel connected. And so, and then they keep looking, further and further away from where they, and what did Steve say? It was, we have a God-sized hole, right? That only God can fill, right? And so, but we try to fill with other things. We're just, so I'm not saying that's
empty.
That's not the only thing that can be in your heart, but there is a place where that needs to be. And if it's not there, I think you wind up looking. Yeah, you get lost looking, I think, sometimes.
There's such a need for bonding and for Christian friendship, because it's a.
So what is Christian friendship? I heard a great sermon once about this.
Do share.
We quote it all the time. It's Father Serby, who's at Holy Spirit my first assignment when we were at the Pentagon. And he gave this sermon. It's great. He's talking about, like, so who are your friends in the world? He goes, blah, blah, blah. He goes, what about this person there? He talks about, your soccer buddy or whatever. He goes, that's not your friend. He's just he goes through this long list. But he eventually comes back to, your friends are the people who are trying to help you get into heaven. And I'm like, yeah, right?
That's perfect.
Yeah. And like, that was his, and so oftentimes, like, when our daughter was little and she would be struggling, whatever, we go, that's not your friend. Friendship's a tough nut to crack.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I love what you were talking about in regards to Jesus and his friends.
Right. Jesus and
Because
his 12 friends.
everything that Jesus did is a model for us.
So there were times when Jesus wanted to be with people, right? He would be in the crowd, right? We have examples of that all through the Gospels, right? He's, but we also know that there were times that he wanted to withdraw, right? And kind of, he needed some alone time, right? As do we, right? I say it all the time, like even WorkCamp is way too people-y, right? It's like, I love being around those kids, but I need to withdraw in order to recharge. And that's just, who I am introvert, extrovert wise, right? But then we have like times where Jesus is, he's with the 12, right? Like at the Last Supper, right? So there's times where he's with the big group. And then there's times where he wants to be alone. But then, like, we're talking about the Garden of
Gethsemane.
Yes, which I can't say.
With his buddies, his closest friends.
His closest friends, who were who?
Peter, James, and John.
Peter, James, and John. He wants to have a real relationship with us. But when we picture it, at least for me, I always picture the spiritual Jesus wanting to have a relationship with me. But it's also the human Jesus that wants to have a friendship with us that we don't, I think I have a hard time getting for me. And so I was reading about the Garden of
Gethsemane
and how, because it was in my Lent book. And so, and how, he's there, he's praying, and he says to them, he says, hey, keep watch over me. He brings his three besties, right? These are his, like, among the 12, these are his three. Can we say that? Yeah. These are his ride or dies. So they're out, and what happens? They fall asleep, right? And so I was struggling with that because I'm like, well, what does that really mean in terms of friendship? Were they not good friends? Is it that we can't rely on our friends? Is it that we, and then I thought, no, maybe the lesson is that even Jesus, who probably knew they were going to fall asleep, right, still wanted them there. He wanted other humans to be with him as a human. He had that need for friendship, right? So that, to me, that says we need to work at those relationships, even though we might get disappointed with our friends who fell asleep when we asked them to watch over us, right? And then what was not the resolution, but the other interesting fact was we talked about, well, it's because I had a friend of mine who said, well, maybe they just got tired, and they fell asleep. Because because you read the gospel, they were there all night because it was into the morning when Judas shows up, right? With the
guards
and such, yeah. And so they were there all through the night. And she was going, yeah, well, they get tired, they fall asleep. And I was like, well, wait a minute. What were they again?
Back to the book. They were fishermen.
They were all fishermen. And what do we read about early in the gospel? They were out all night fishing and didn't catch anything, right? Yeah, so these guys knew how to stay up at night, right? So what's going on? But anyway, but that was but again, this is they fell asleep. And sometimes in friendships we might fall asleep, and we need to make amends for that, But I do think that Father Serby had it right. Right. It's kind of like asking, does this thing serve me? Right. Does this friendship serve me? And I think you need to ask those questions. Like, is this helping me get closer to heaven? Or is this person on the same journey I'm on? Or can I take this person with me on this journey, which I'm doing in September?
Yes.
I'm walking El Camino.
We did an episode on the Camino.
Yeah.
One of our sisters did the whole Camino right before she became a postulant.
Wow.
And so that's in, I think, season 1 or 2, way back. So
I'll go back and watch.
Yeah,
we're doing the Gucci version. It's a glamping
Talk about
version.
the glam.
The glamping version, where you do it's like the requirement is to be a pilgrim, you have to do 100 kilometers.
Okay.
And so we will do 100 kilometers, but it's like we stay in a hotel, and they bus us to our starting spot, and we walk. And there's tours along the way, like Father Bennett from our parish is actually coming along to be the priest that does it with us. And then, so there's tours along the way, but like, halfway every day, there's a place that we stop for lunch, and they have lunch waiting for us. They have water stations for us, for a little backpack with our food. We're not hoofing all our stuff. Yeah, but it's actually geared for, me. So it's like, so I like it. Because
Yes.
my good friend who's coming with me on this walk, Cujo, my buddy from the Air Force, is neither Christian nor Catholic. But he wanted to go. He's like, I really want to go do this. And that just my wife. My wife, when I said to her, because she teaches, so she can't take time off. She's first grade teacher at Nativity, right, in Springfield or Burke. And she goes, why don't you call Cujo, see if he wants to go? And he's like my best friend from the Air Force. And he fits that, if I were
He's your ride or die.
he's my, yeah, he is. I could count on him. He's that kind of friend. So, and he's a very deeply spiritual person, but he's never really had a relationship in a formal religious setting before. And he's like, and so what's funny is when I asked him if he wanted to go, he asked his wife, who then went and researched it, and then went really quiet. And then he's like, why is she so quiet? What's going on? And then the next day she's like, so what do you think? Can I go with Bob on this? And she's like, well, you're going to be gone for 3 months. Because she thought we were like, we're walking the whole thing. And he's like, no, we're going to be gone for 2 weeks. And she's like, oh yeah, you can go. So yeah. So that's my adventure for September. So WorkCamp in June, and then Camino in September. But before that, my other ministry that I do with my church, which is I have an Appalachian home building ministry where we go out to Appalachia every year, Kentucky, and we build a home. So it's much different from
in
WorkCamp.
1 week.
In 12 days. 12 days.
That's insane.
Yeah. So when we get there, the foundation is built, and the subfloor has been put on by a group that comes in from Indianapolis. So there's a local contractor that does the foundation and digs a septic system. So this is work that gets done beforehand.
Yeah.
But the house goes up pretty fast. And all the money for it, not all of it, but like 95% of it comes from our parish. $127,000.
Wow. And
they raised it in like a month. It's amazing. It's one of the 10 poorest counties in America, where we go, McCurry County in Kentucky. So this young girl and her brother lost their dad to drugs and suicide. And their mother was also had drug problem. So they were living with their grandma, and they didn't have a place to live. So they were living with a relative. And so so they applied, to our ministry, and so we selected them as our builders. But she's just so shy, right? She's really, and so I purposely I try to connect with them before we go, and so I've been writing letters to them, like when the plans for their house got approved. I took a picture, I had it, and I sent them a letter. And it's like, hey, I don't want to say their names, but I'd say, hey, little girl, little boy. Like, what rooms do you think you're going to be in? And so I was like, well, I think probably little boy wants to be really close to the kitchen, because that's where the refrigerator is, right? But that's kind of close to grandma's room, so maybe he wants to be down the other end. It's not a very big house, but and then the little, the girl's like, what room do you want to be in? And then so they sent it back, and she had colored pink in her room, and he had colored blue in his, and so I would write to them, and they didn't write back. And then finally I went and I actually wrote notes as if they were from them to me, with just like remember ad libs when you were a kid, right? So like fill in the blank. Hi, Mr. Bob, I'm doing, and then like
fill in the blank.
Like, I'm excited about blank. School is blank, whatever. And they sent them back. And I self-addressed stamped envelopes, and they did. Their grandmother made them and sent them back. But just trying to connect them, because it's kind of weird to have. There's like 28 of us that show up, right? So there you are. You've been living next to this slab that got built a month ago or 2 months ago, and 28 guys show up, and they know who you are, and they know your story, and you know nothing about them, right? But they're gonna. I just felt it was important that they have a connectedness to us. And also, even if it's just the smallest little thing, getting them in the house to do some of the work, so that they remember
feel
it.
Connected.
Yeah.
Have a buy-in.
So I would go over every day and find them, and come on, let's go see what's going on in the house, right? Because the first day the walls go up, right? So you're like, hey, check it out. This is your room right here. See where it is? Can you see it? this is the floor where it's going to be. There's nothing else, right? It's like we're going to stand in your room, but eventually there's going to be a room here,
Mhm.
and but every day bringing them over and having them help, and the little boy helped a lot more. He would come over and he had a little tool belt that someone brought for him. Luis, I think, brought it for him. Anyway, so he had a little tool belt, and we made him put on safety goggles, so he had goggles on, and but he helped put the siding up. And he came out and he helped clean up, like he helped clean things up. And then the girl came out and painted a bunch. Yeah, so she came out and painted with Barry, does a lot of painting, and actually Jane is one of the ladies who comes, and she was working with her. So and it was funny was she was very, very shy, and finally, literally her not veil came down, but her
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 walls,
demeanor
yeah.
changed, yeah, a little bit. And so we had her. She was doing drywall with me one day, and just like WorkCamp, because I'm like okay with it, right? Because WorkCamp's like get a big bucket because we're gonna half of it's going on the floor. I gotta tell you a cocking story from WorkCamp, but no, but like just because if it falls on the floor, we could just pick it up.
Yeah,
It'll be
it's fine.
it was fine. We don't care. So she was and it doesn't have to be perfect, right? It's like, but she'll know, like that wall, that corner. I remember doing that with that guy. Oh, by the way, came from a church, and he was full of faith, and you know what I mean, and maybe felt a little bit closer to God in those moments when we were around them. So
Mhm.
I don't know, just modeling behavior that you would like them to embrace. So that's my goal.
Yeah.
Is to kind of be present, and you're not going to solve all their problems, right? I can't fix the stuff that's broken in their lives, but we put a roof over their heads. And in fact, the grandma wrote me a note and said that she cleans the house every day
Oh,
because she goes, Grandma, it's so easy to clean because it's so nice and it's so but yeah. So what dignity, right? For these folks. And so for little boy, little girl to have their little house
and grandma.
and grandma, yeah, and like grandma's my age, and I'm not a grandparent yet, but it's very relational. So but yeah, so and then we try to see them every year.
Let me ask you this because I know this is something also on your heart. You talked a lot about the things that you do with your skills specifically
Mm-hmm.
to do good for others. Um, as it relates to men and faith,
Uh-huh.
I know there's this need for men
Yeah.
to be men and grow in their faith and be people of God without like, oh, that's for women, that's a like feminine thing
Mm-hmm.
to go to church and pray and
Yeah. So this is where we kind of started, right? This talk on friendship,
mm-hmm,
because it's like um, it's like intimacy
mm-hmm,
amongst men, right? Men aren't wired for it as much. Some men are, right? So I don't like to paint with big broad brushes, but I think men are sent different signals by society, right? There's these that tell them, be independent, figure it
mm-hmm,
out on your own, um, be self-reliant. And so that kind of, I think that kind of narrative steers you away from forming close male bonds. And
mm-hmm,
so I was getting frustrated in life because I felt like a lot of the men I was interacting with were um, not closed off, but what's the right word for it? Like there was like a competition, and like I don't have competition. I don't care how long your commute is compared to mine, right? I don't care how big your house is compared to mine, because like men when they meet each other, like, oh, so what do you do? Right, and there's an instant,
yeah, like what status,
you're automatically put somewhere based on what it is you do, as opposed to who you are, right? And so that's what I like about Appalachia is because all the men that go, we're all it's amazing backgrounds, right? There's we're all, a lot of us are retired military folks who had very successful careers, in the military doing whatever, but there's other folks that spent their careers like say the Commerce Department, right? And they rose to, be pretty important people within those organizations. But I just was frustrated with, you know, trying to not form friendships with men, because I have good friendships with men, but just trying to like thinking about these young kids that were at work camp, and especially the boys, and thinking about, you know, because they're young enough, they're at an age where they haven't bought into the, what society's telling them they should be yet, right? So you've got a chance to get in there and teach them it's okay to have empathy, and it's okay to have feelings, and it's okay to talk about, your faith with another person. And I think work camp really gives these kids that opportunity to do that. But I would be very surprised to find out that there isn't a kid that goes to work camp that doesn't leave after that week stronger in their faith, but also more resilient, I think, in terms of knowing that they can lean on God a little bit more.
I think it just points to, for me, the need for other adults or mentors in your life, aside from, the official, like parents or grandparents or what have you,
I think so.
as figures. Even priests and sisters, we're great, and I'm not saying we're not, but
nor am I.
But most people are going to get married and have kids,
and
live the family life. So for them to come to an experience where they interact with other adults of faith, other people who can serve as mentors for them, to say, okay, like I've been living this faith for, decades now, and this is where I'm at, and modeling good behavior when things go wrong, or apologizing when you make a mistake. I mean, these are powerful experiences for not just high schoolers, but for anyone to have someone who's a little further along who you can look to. And I think that's the gift of someone like you, who's out there working with young people who are not your own kids. They're our kids, in a sense.
I think being vulnerable is part, approachable, right? And being incredible, not incredible, but credible.
You're incredible. You're pretty incredible.
But like being like, like a credible source for them to talk to, right? It's you want for me, I think, I don't know if I shared this with you or not, because I was kind of trying to discern it. It's like, what is it I want here? Like, I want to be one of the many people that these kids interact with when they think back on their faith formation, and like, oh, I remember, I don't want kids orbiting around me. Do you know what I mean? Not at all. I want them to maybe remember my name, but I want to not put a dent in them, but I want to leave a mark. I want them to remember that there was someone that they met at work camp who, oh yeah, I remember that guy, and you might have talked to them, you might have shared something with them, you might just listen to them, and so it's interesting, because I don't think it's that hard, but I know that there's other adults that find it really hard to relate to kids, and to, but I think just ask them about themselves and then listen. I want to witness it, I want to hear about it. That's what I want. That's what, that to me, that's the work camp dividend right there. We see a kid like that happy and in a faith life, so and there's a bunch of other ones too. Like last year, it was funny. My first year at work camp, I had a young lady on my crew, right? The next year, you go to your crew on Saturday night, you're waiting for the kid to show up, okay? And they tell you to go to your crew. And she shows up. And I'm like, oh, you can say her name. Sarah, where are you? What crew are you in? She was in the same crew. The second year in a row, right? Nice. So we're in the same crew, second year. And then she was there last year as a college kid.
Leader. Yeah.
I got to see her again. So yeah.
What a gift.
What a gift to like, and she remembers you, right? So you're like, oh, Bob, right? So Bob the Builder. So
Bob the Builder.
You're Bob the Builder. So so it's that's it, man. That's the why do you do all this? That's it right there.
That's what you hope for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are times I weep at work camp.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Talking about male friendships. Someone
you know
who
what?
can weep.
I'm a big crybaby. No, but I'll show you a picture later, but it's the one that had me crying the second year Sarah was on the crew. It was a double crew. And it was just a really hard week because we were supposed to and this is every work camp project. We were supposed to repair the tread on this lady's deck stairs. That was it. It would repair the tread, right?
Sounds like a pretty straightforward.
The whole thing was rotten. As soon as we pulled the treads off, the stringers fell apart. And then we looked underneath it and it was all rotted. So we wound up rebuilding the entire deck, which was not what we had planned, right? So we get it all torn down, and we were like, and it was a hard week. It was a really hard week. And so we were at the stage where we had all the footers in, the beams in. We had built the deck like frame off to the side. We picked it up, we brought it over, we slid it on, we slid it into place, and guess what? It fit right where we're supposed to. But then we were putting the posts on, right? And I was the only contractor because there was supposed to be another contractor, but he didn't show up. So I had both crews, and it was just mayhem all week. Like, Bob, what do we do here? Bob, what do we do here? Bob, what do we do here? And I had two good adult crew leaders that were good at stuff, but I was constantly running from place to place to place to, you know. And so we were putting the railing beams, 4x4s in. And there's a way you got to do it where you put it in, there's blocking, and there's like these screws you got to put in. And there were 3 kids that I was working with. I can't remember their names, which is fine, but I can picture them in my mind. And we had, got all the clamps and everything else, and we get, all the tools are there, the drills and the drivers, and we get the thing in, and they were really good kids. They were really good kids. And so I got called away, and so I turn around, and I go to help whatever. And left them there because we were going to do the next one together, right? And I come back, and I'm going to start crying. And I come back, and they were doing it by themselves. They were doing it by themselves. And that, the one kid, the boy was like, no. He's like, you got to get level at the bottom. And I just sat back, and I took pictures, and I'm crying. It was just, I don't know. It was worth every, every cut I got, every bug bite I got, right? All the crappy sleep I got, all the food. There's lots of it. It's not very good. but anyway, I need tissue. But that's work camp, man. That's the magic of, you just sit back and you're like, because they were confident too. You know what I mean? They had this confidence, and that was crooked. No. No, it was perfect. And I will forever in my mind, I'll have that lady's deck in Quicksburg, Virginia, with that post, was like a watershed moment for me for work camp, because they did it, they were doing it on there, and then you can walk away and you're like, so and they were getting, they were working with each other, it was great. It was really, way to make me cry.
I love that. I think it's so good because this is an aspect of God that is so cool to be able to participate in the creative work of God.
Yeah. Yes.
The God who made something from nothing. There was nothing but a formless wasteland.
Yeah.
And he created. And when we do this stuff, when you help others start from rotted wood, which is good for nothing, to bringing in something beautiful that no one else, not no one else could do it, but this lady was not going to have it unless you did it.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah.
And so for you to be able to plant seeds in that way and allow and teach and model it's creativity in the sense of creating a physical structure, but it's creativity in your structure. You're helping something be structured inside a young person to scaffold their faith and their talent and their ability to overcome frustration or to push through when things get hard. you're not just teaching them a skill, you're teaching them something that's going to translate into so many aspects of their life.
Yeah, I really think so. Yeah. I think this is the crew I told it to. It is actually. We were all done. We weren't all done. We didn't get done, but the next day, Friday, which is when Deacon Mike came out, we like, because then we get the nail guns.
You got it. Yeah, get yourself some nail guns. Good stuff.
But I said to them, I sent them pictures, and I on that Friday, I didn't get back to the program, but I sent them a note, and I said, you've been to homes where, like in here, right, we have a crucifix, and there's all these statues and these reminders of our faith, right? And I said, it's not like we went to this lady's house and we put a Virgin Mary statue in her yard. I said, but we put something in her yard that she can never not look at and know, right? That there are a bunch of people that had a whole lot of faith that came out here and built that and put it in her yard. I said, you built a little shrine to God right there. All these WorkCamp projects, to me, they're little shrines that we're building all over the place. You know what I mean? Just like we're leaving a mark. And that, same thing, just leaving a mark.
That's right.
Yeah.
In the best way.
And that's the mark we leave is this, these projects that we do. And so people can't look out that window that we put in for them without remembering the kids that came and did that and their faith that they had. And that's the other part of it too, is you don't know how, I tell the kids this, you don't know how long God has been knocking at this door, right? And now here we are, right? And we're going to knock on the door. And they invited us in, and they may not know what's going to happen, but we're bringing God with us. So
that's great,
right? So we don't know what. Yeah,
God wants to use us. There's no question. Yeah, we just have to be instruments.
Yeah, or was it Steve or you talked about the opportunities for grace that appear, but you have to be ready to say yes. Yeah, your heart has to be open to it, and so I think WorkCamp helps the kids do that, be open to it. So yeah. Amen.
Well, thank you so much, Bob. You're amazing. It's been fun.